This is my brand new Star Trek fan fiction, just for you. Captain's log, stardate 2545. 65 members of the Enterprise crew managed to beam down to the planet Sirus before the radiation poisoning aboard the Enterprise killed the rest. Captain Kirk, Spock, and Dr. McCoy donned radiation-proof suits, supervising the transport, but once it was evident there were no survivors left, transported down to the planet themselves. What the F are we supposed to do now? McCoy asked as he tossed his protective suit behind what looked like a tree. Rescue won't arrive for 6 months, and we were warned about this shithole planet by Starfleet. I don't know, Bones, Kirk replied, and stop bitching. I get tired of your constant shitty attitude. Say something positive once. At least you are here, instead of that tomb orbiting 600 miles above us. I don't know about you, Captain, McCoy said, with a condescending attitude, but I'm starving, and according to our records, there isn't much down here that's edible. And the natives? They're hostile. Spock interjected. Yes, Doctor. Records indicate the native population is aggressive towards outsiders. We will have to be careful. Did anyone think to beam down a food replicator? McCoy asked. No, Kirk replied. I said stop bitching. Mobile food replicators do not exist, Spock replied. They would be far too bulky to create and were designed to be part of the Enterprise. If food was needed for an away mission, the food would have been sent along in storage vessels. Then what are we? One more negative word out of you, Bones, and I will shoot you and eat you, Kirk said. We need to figure out how to survive and fast. Our crew is close by, and we need to join them and find a source of drinking water. Then we can work on food and shelter. Then, an unfamiliar voice spoke up from the edge of the clearing. We have provided your crew with all they need, the voice called out. We are not as hostile as your computer led you to believe. The humanoid behind the voice was a tall, thin, pale being, well-muscled, with antennae sticking out the top of its head. Who are you? Kirk asked. And where are my people? My name is Ted, and your people are safe back at my village. Ted, McCoy asked. That's the most effed up name for an alien I've ever heard. Don't believe him, Jim. He's lying. I chose the name Ted so you would feel comfortable, the alien replied. I could give you my real name if that would be more acceptable. No, Ted is fine, Kirk replied. How far away is your village? Not far, Ted replied. I will take you there. Ted motioned for the three to follow, and together they found a path that led through the forest of unfamiliar tree-like plants and undergrowth. You must know something about us, if you came up with the name Ted, Kirk said, following the alien being. We know a few things, Ted replied. We know your language and a bit of your culture. Have you met humans before? Yes, and we enjoy them very much, Ted replied as he led the way. Enjoy? McCoy asked. I hope that doesn't mean what I think it does. I'm sure he's talking about our culture, Kirk snapped back at McCoy. No, Ted replied. I mean served up with our native foods. Kirk stopped in his tracks and said, Are you saying you eat humans? Ted spun around and looked back at the three Enterprise crew members who were following him. Yes, of course, but it has been a long time since humans have visited, so you will be a very special meal to us. I told you, McCoy barked. I knew something like this was going to happen, and pulled his phaser. I'm going to kill that mother effer right now. It was then the other aliens stepped through the trees and surrounded Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. Oh no, McCoy snapped and shot Ted in the head, tearing the alien's head off, sending tissue and what looked like blood through the air. Ted stood there and did not fall to the ground. Now you did it, Kirk said. Did what? McCoy barked back. He said he planned to eat us. We always attempt diplomacy first. Diplomacy my ass, McCoy replied. Nobody's going to effing eat me. It was at this moment that McCoy noticed that Ted's head had grown back, and he looked pissed. Your primitive phaser will only delay the inevitable, Ted said. It will take far more power and ingenuity to kill us and save yourself. McCoy shot Ted again in the head, ripping it to shreds, and this time took many more shots into his body until the alien was a puddle of goo on the ground. "Anyone else want a piece of me?" McCoy asked, spinning around looking at the half-dozen aliens that were surrounding them. By now, Spock and Kirk had pulled their phasers and were also threatening the aliens. McCoy looked down at the puddle of remains and didn't see any regeneration and felt a bit better about his situation. "Looks like if you shoot them enough, they don't come back. I suggest we turn these sons of bitches into liquid before they serve us up for lunch." Before a shot could be fired, all the alien beings disappeared back into the woods, leaving the 3 Enterprise officers alone on the path. "Now what do we do?" Kirk asked. "Continue on this path and try to find our crew, or head back to our landing site?" I've got some brand new Star Trek fan fiction. Please subscribe below. Give me a thumbs up. I hope to get 250 subscribers off this video. Thank you. Captain's Log 2020. The Enterprise was under attack by a Klingon battlecruiser when Spock was impaled by shards of shattered bulkhead in a torpedo detonation on D-deck on his way to the bridge. Spock lay dying on the ground until he was transported to sickbay, accompanied by Captain Kirk, who was administering open-heart massage. "What in the blazes is going on?" Dr. McCoy yelled as Spock was transferred to an exam table. "He needs to be in surgery immediately." "I'm doing the best I can," Kirk snapped, his hand and wrist exhausted from 10 minutes of manipulating Spock's heart so he wouldn't die. "We don't have time to get him to surgery. Do something now." McCoy could see that much of Spock's lower half was gone, and that Kirk was doing his best to keep his blood pumping through his body. "Get me a cut-down tray and a surgery set," McCoy yelled, "and 3 scrub nurses. Stat!" Spock lied unconscious with his eyes closed, draining green blood onto the floor, uncontrolled. Kirk changed hands and continued to squeeze Spock's heart, feeling the organ losing pressure with each beat. "I need pickups and suction the blood. I can't see what I'm doing," McCoy yelled. A nurse handed McCoy a set of pickups, while another tried to suction the blood so McCoy could see. "What can I do to help?" Kirk asked frantically. "Keep doing what you're doing. I'll try to figure this out," McCoy replied. He seemed confused and didn't know where to start. "These Vulcans are so screwed up. I can't tell what's going on here." "Is there someone else that can help?" Nurse Chapel asked. "You can ask," McCoy replied. "Maybe one of the other doctors knows Vulcan physiology better than I do." Nurse Chapel left the room and searched for another doctor to take over. "I'm losing him, Jim," McCoy said nervously. "He needs blood, and lots of it, and I don't have much Vulcan blood in my stores." "Nurse, look up Spock's blood type and get as much down here as you can." Kirk spoke up. "Spock is half human. I'll donate anything I'm able." "I don't think it works that way, Jim. I don't think his Vulcan half can take full human blood. It has to be a hybrid of Vulcan and human." "Are you sure?" "Right now, I'm willing to try anything," McCoy said. "I have plenty of human blood in storage. And if I can't find Spock's exact match, I will try human O positive." "Doctor," a nurse called out, "we don't have a match for Spock's blood." 6 weeks later, Dr. McCoy sat on the stand at his malpractice trial with Spock strapped into a containment unit, feeding him oxygen and circulating his blood. The defense attorney stood before McCoy with a pad of paper in his hand, scratching something with a pen. "Dr. McCoy," the prosecuting attorney said, "is it true you are trained as a physician to work with Vulcan physiology?" "I have had some training, but I am not an expert," McCoy replied. "I am not certified as a Vulcan surgeon, if that's what you mean." "Then why did you call for a surgery set?" the attorney asked. "Was it your intention to perform surgery on Commander Spock?" "It was my intention to save his life," McCoy barked back. "I was going to stabilize him until I could get the help I needed." "Did you manage to stabilize him as you intended?" "No," McCoy replied. "And what happened?" "Spock died on the table." Died? The prosecuting attorney asked. Clinically, he had no vital signs, McCoy replied. Then what did you do? The attorney asked. I gave him 10 cc's of adrenaline and hoped for the best. The best? What happened then? McCoy looked to the floor and avoided eye contact with the attorney. Nothing. I gave him my best shot. Isn't it true that adrenaline has the opposite effect on Vulcans? The attorney asked. Yes, that is true, but I didn't know that then. Adrenaline is what you use for humans if their heart stops. Is that correct? Yes, but I was out of options, McCoy barked back. Then what did you do? The attorney asked. I called his time of death and gave up. He bled out on the table. But isn't Mr. Spock here in the courtroom now? The attorney asked. Obviously, McCoy replied, pissed. Why isn't Spock dead? The attorney asked. Another doctor who was familiar with Vulcan physiology came in and took over. And because of your gross negligence, Spock suffered irreversible harm and now lives in a medical containment unit that he will have to rely on for the rest of his life, the attorney said. I object, the defending attorney yelled from his table. Negligence has not been proven here, let alone gross negligence. Sustained, the judge said. Change your question or ask another. Yes, Your Honor, the prosecuting attorney replied. That is the end of my three pages. If you like that one, I will write more and make it longer. Follow, and go to my playlist, my podcast, and you can see 40 more of these. So, thanks for being here, and enjoy.